From the very first snap, this Super Bowl told a story that Patriots fans didn't want to see, but one that deserves to be broken down honestly. This was a game where the final score, 29-13, in favor of the Seahawks, doesn't fully explain how hard the Patriots defense fought, nor does it hide how completely the offense failed to show up when it mattered most. Going into halftime down just 9-0, there was still a sense that the Patriots were hanging around, that one good drive or one momentum swing could change everything. But the deeper the game went, the clearer it became that the offense simply had no answers, and that reality defined the night. The defense deserves real credit. Holding a Super Bowl opponent to 29 points after being put in bad positions all night is not a failure, especially when you consider how often they were forced back onto the field. They played disciplined football, limited big mistakes, and stayed competitive despite the circumstances. Time of possession tells part of the story. The Patriots had the ball for only 26 minutes, and a good chunk of that came late when the Seahawks were already playing prevent defense. For most of the game, the defense was asked to absorb pressure because the offense could not sustain drives or flip field position. Offensively, this was a collapse across the board. It didn't matter whether you looked at the quarterback, the running backs, the receivers, or the line in front of them. Nothing worked in sync. Drake Maye finished 27 for 43 for 295 yards with 37 rushing yards. But those numbers are misleading. A lot of that production came late and did nothing to change the outcome. He threw 2 interceptions, and more importantly, he never looked comfortable. From the opening drives, it was clear that his first thought wasn't finding an open receiver, but simply surviving the pocket. He was sacked 6 times, tying the most sacks ever taken in a Super Bowl, and that constant pressure completely altered how he played the game. This loss was not about a lack of effort from the skill players alone. Rhamondre Stevenson still showed value, especially as a pass catcher, finishing with 5 receptions for 40 yards, but on the ground, the run game went nowhere. 7 carries for 23 yards is not going to help a rookie quarterback settle into the biggest game of his life. Trayvon Henderson had moments where better vision could have changed key plays, including one short yardage situation where the wrong gap choice killed momentum. At receiver, Matt Collins stood out as the lone bright spot, with 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown, consistently making plays when given the chance. But beyond that, separation was rare, timing was off, and opportunities vanished as quickly as they appeared. Still, when you strip everything down, there is one unit that stands above all others as the reason this game slipped away. The offensive line. This was one of the worst performances by a Patriots offensive line in recent memory, especially considering the stage. Drake Maye was pressured relentlessly, hit repeatedly, and given almost no chance to operate within structure. The left side of the line, in particular, collapsed. Will Campbell struggled badly, getting overpowered snap after snap. Over the course of the postseason, Drake Maye was sacked 20 times, and this game felt like the breaking point. The discussion about Will Campbell's future position is no longer theoretical. Based on what we saw, the idea of moving him inside to guard feels less like an overreaction and more like a necessity. Jared Wilson had issues of his own, and while Garrett Bradbury did not draw the same level of criticism, questions remain about how this line should be constructed moving forward. Morgan Moses could have been better, but the damage was already done on the left. When your quarterback is getting hit that often, the rest of the offense doesn't matter. Plays don't develop, receivers don't have time to separate, and confidence drains away drive by drive. By halftime, the Patriots had just 4 first downs and went nearly 2.5 quarters without moving the chains. That is not a recipe for winning any game, let alone the Super Bowl. Despite the disappointment, it's important to keep perspective. This team came from a 4-win season a year ago to playing on the final Sunday of the NFL season. Under Mike Vrabel, the Patriots re-established an identity built on toughness and defensive consistency. Drake Maye, even in this loss, showed why the organization believes in him long-term, finishing the season as the MVP runner-up. There is pride in how far this team came, even if the ending hurts. Now the focus inevitably shifts to what comes next. Free agency, the draft, and a full offseason of evaluation lie ahead. The biggest question facing this franchise is obvious, and it starts up front. How aggressively do the Patriots rebuild the offensive line to protect their quarterback and prevent a night like this from happening again? With that in mind, how do you feel about this Super Bowl loss and what it says about the Patriots' future moving forward? When you move past the frustration of the final score and really dig into this game, the defense becomes the clearest reason why this loss doesn't feel like a complete collapse of the Patriots' direction. They were put in impossible situations over and over again and still responded. Milton Williams was everything this team hoped for and more. 2 tackles for loss, a sack, a quarterback hit, and constant pressure that never fully shows up on the stat sheet. Every time the Seahawks tried to lean into their run-heavy approach, he was there disrupting timing and forcing adjustments. Performances like that are exactly why his contract already feels justified. Anthony Jennings also deserves recognition. After dealing with trade rumors and uncertainty throughout the season, he stepped into this moment and played with composure. He wasn't flashy, but he was reliable, and for a defense that needed stability, that mattered. As a depth piece, he showed real value. And that's not something to overlook when evaluating the roster heading into the offseason. Then there was the rookie who arguably played with more edge and urgency than anyone else on the field. Craig Woodson didn't just belong in this game, he announced himself 7 tackles, 2 pass breakups, and multiple stops behind the line of scrimmage in the biggest game of his life. That's not luck. That's preparation and confidence. Outside of one other player, no Patriot showed more resilience than Woodson, and what he put on tape in this Super Bowl changes expectations for his future. He didn't look like a rookie, he looked like a foundational piece. And then there is Christian Gonzalez. It cannot be overstated how dominant he was. 4 tackles, 3 pass breakups, and complete control of his assignments. JSN was essentially erased from the game, and any receiver Gonzalez lined up against struggled to make an impact. If he doesn't play in this Super Bowl, this game turns into a blowout early. That's not exaggeration, that's reality. At this point, there should be no debate internally. He is the best player on this defense, one of the best cornerbacks in football, and a player you build around without hesitation. With his rookie deal approaching its later stages, the conversation about an extension should already be happening because players like this don't come around often. Special teams quietly did their job. Bryce Behringer, after some inconsistency earlier in the postseason, handled a heavy workload and punted effectively. 8 punts in a Super Bowl means your offense failed you, but it also means your punter has to be sharp, and he was. Field position never completely flipped the game, but it also didn't make things worse, and that matters in tight moments. What makes this loss sting is not just that the Patriots lost, but that the blueprint for improvement is so obvious. This wasn't a talent issue across the entire roster. This was a structural failure up front. The offensive line broke down, and everything else collapsed with it. That clarity matters, because it tells you where resources must go. Wide receiver help is needed. Tight end depth needs to be evaluated, especially with Hunter Henry clearly nearing the later stage of his career despite everything he has meant to this franchise. But none of it works unless Drake Maye is protected. This season still deserves to be viewed as a success, a rebuilt roster, a new coaching era under Mike Vrabel, and a rookie quarterback leading the team all the way to the Super Bowl. That does not happen by accident. The foundation is real, the culture is real, and the belief that this team can get back here again is justified even if it's not immediate. The challenge now is whether the Patriots front office responds decisively. The offensive line cannot be patched, it has to be rebuilt. Position changes, tough roster decisions, and aggressive moves will define whether this Super Bowl appearance becomes the start of something sustained or a missed opportunity. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe this Super Bowl loss was a painful but necessary step in the Patriots' rebuild? Or does it expose deeper concerns that could hold this team back if they aren't addressed immediately? What lingers after a loss like this is the emotional weight of how close this team really was, and at the same time, how far it still has to go. Being on the Super Bowl field changes expectations forever. Once you get there, rebuilding is no longer an excuse, it becomes a responsibility. That's the line the Patriots have officially crossed. This season proved they are no longer searching for an identity. They found one. Now the pressure is about refinement, not discovery. The hardest truth to accept is that this game exposed the gap between being a good team and being a championship-ready team. The Patriots were tough, disciplined, and resilient all season. They earned their way here, but when the margin for error disappeared, the weaknesses became impossible to hide. Championship teams don't just survive pressure, they control it. On Sunday night, the Seahawks dictated everything at the line of scrimmage, and once that happened, the script was written. Drake Maye's performance will be debated all offseason, but the tape tells a much clearer story than the stat line. He was rushed, uncomfortable, and forced into survival mode. That's not an indictment of the quarterback, it's a warning sign for the organization. Young quarterbacks don't fail because they lack talent. They fail when they are repeatedly put in situations where they can't develop proper habits. The Patriots cannot allow this Super Bowl to become the norm for how Maye experiences big moments. Protecting him is no longer just about performance, it's about the future of the franchise. The encouraging part is that the defense already looks like a unit built for sustained success. Gonzalez, Woodson, Williams, and the overall discipline of that group give the Patriots something many teams spend years searching for. Defensive stars in their prime, playing with confidence on the biggest stage without fear. That side of the ball is not a question mark, it's a strength. And when you have that, your window stays open longer than most. The offense, however, is at a crossroads. This is where hard decisions define legacies. Position changes, draft priorities, free agency investments, and even emotional attachments to players will be tested. Fans may disagree on specific names, but the direction is not debatable. The offensive line must be rebuilt with urgency. Wide receiver depth must be upgraded with players who can win early in routes. The tight end room must be evaluated honestly, and the running game must be structured to help the quarterback, not depend on him to bail it out. What should give Patriots fans real confidence is that this organization has clarity. There is no mystery about what went wrong. There are no excuses to hide behind. This was not a fluke loss or a lucky run that ended abruptly. This was a team that earned its way to the Super Bowl and learned, painfully, what it takes to win it. That lesson, as harsh as it feels, is valuable. The season ended without a trophy, but it didn't end without purpose. The Patriots are back in the conversation, back on the national stage, and back with expectations attached to their name. That matters. The offseason ahead will be one of the most important in recent franchise history, because the moves made now will determine whether this appearance was the beginning of a run or a moment that slipped away. The reason this moment matters so much is because seasons like this don't come around quietly. They change how a franchise is judged, internally and externally. Once you play in a Super Bowl, every offseason decision is measured against that standard. The Patriots are no longer a team hoping to compete, they are a team expected to respond. That shift is subtle, but it's massive. And it starts with how this loss is processed, not emotionally, but structurally. One of the biggest takeaways from this game is that the Patriots now know exactly which players can handle the biggest stage and which situations still overwhelm the roster. That information is invaluable. You saw defenders playing fast, confident, and instinctive, even when they were tired and put in bad spots. You also saw an offense that tightened up as the pressure increased, not because of fear, but because of limitations. Those are two very different problems, and only one of them can be solved with belief alone. Mike Vrabel's role in what comes next cannot be overstated. This season showed his ability to stabilize a locker room, create accountability, and get maximum effort from his players. But the next phase is about evolution. Great coaches adjust when they get punched at the highest level. This offseason will test how adaptable this staff is when building an offense that protects its quarterback and plays with balance, especially when the game script doesn't go as planned. There's also a reality Patriots fans have to accept. Not every player from this Super Bowl roster will be part of the next run. That's how the league works. Emotional attachments don't survive cap realities, draft boards, and long-term planning. The front office now has to decide who fits the future version of this team, not who helped get them here. That's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. What makes this different from past rebuilding years is trust. There is trust in the quarterback. There is trust in the defensive core. There is trust in the coaching direction. Those are the hardest pieces to find in the NFL, and the Patriots already have them. Everything else, offensive line pieces, skill position upgrades, depth corrections, those are solvable problems if attacked correctly. This Super Bowl loss will hurt for a long time, but it shouldn't discourage